G'day, I'm Garry Stevens, and welcome to the second series of the History in the Bible podcast. More of the history in more of the books in all the Bibles. Episode 2.9, The Apocalypse to End Them All, First Enoch. This episode is a little shorter than usual, only because I couldn't figure out a better way to divide the material I have. In the last episode of the History in the Bible, I introduced the vast lost testaments that are the parabiblical literature. I also introduced one of the most important books of those testaments, First Enoch, father of all apocalypses. First Enoch is more than an apocalypse, a description of the end of days. It also rewrites the book of Genesis. The book tells us why there is evil. Evil came to earth not with the fall of Adam and Eve, but with fallen angels, the Watchers, who mated with human women and begat monsters. And that is exactly the theory espoused by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the only church to include First Enoch as a book of the Old Testament. First Enoch has nothing to say about the laws and commandments of the books of Moses. Unlike the Old Testament, the book speaks at length of a life after death and the concept of a hell. It advocates a solar calendar rather than the lunar calendar of the Jews, so important for setting the days of the religious feasts. It rejects the Second Temple as impure. The book is a striking rejection of the Jewish religious establishment. From the fact that these themes resonated with many of the later parabibs, we can be sure that they were widespread and popular. You can see the attraction of the apocalyptic books for people who were oppressed, or at least believed that they were oppressed. Some people think they are oppressed if their pizza order arrives 10 minutes late, or if they can't carry an assault rifle into a pizza parlour. It takes all types to make a world. In the late Second Temple period, the Jews were discombobulated. The scriptures and later prophets told them that the King of Jerusalem and Jerusalem's God would govern the whole world. Second Isaiah was confident that the nations of the earth would accept Yahweh and bow down to him in Jerusalem. The Jews were to be a light unto the nations, an imperial power. It was clear to all Jews after the return that their social and political situation was the exact opposite to the pretensions of the scriptures and prophets. Their province was a desert backwater under the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans. The Jews and later the Christians could not hope to overcome the empires they found themselves in. The apocalyptic books gave them hope and strength. The books taught that their oppression in the world was just a shadow of heavenly realities. Everything that happened on earth was just a mirror image of vastly greater battles happening on a cosmic scale. Struggles that humans could barely hope to comprehend. The books said that the oppressed could resist until God intervened in history with his angels and divine armies, alongside which the righteous would fight. The Greeks and Romans might seem powerful now, but they were puny compared to the vast heavenly forces that would one day be unleashed upon them. The apocalyptic literature, of which First Enoch is the greatest exemplar, spawned two movements. The most influential is Christianity, which is suffused with ideas and concepts from the genre. Until the rediscovery of First Enoch by Europeans in the 19th century, and the later discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the mid-20th century, it was thought that these ideas were born with the Jesus movement, with perhaps a nod or two to some Old Testament prophets. Only in the late 20th century did it become clear how much Christianity owed to a literature suppressed for millennia. The second, Jewish movement was still born. Many of the Dead Sea Scrolls, such as the famous War Scroll, express apocalyptic hopes. Whoever placed them in the caves at Qumran sometime in the early Roman period, regarded them as precious and worthy of preservation. The last Jewish apocalypse was written shortly after the fall of the Temple in 70 AD, at about the same time the Qumran community faded into history. That book is often called the Jewish Apocalypse of Ezra, known as Ezra Setuel in the Ethiopian Bible. The book was preserved in Christian Bibles as the largest portion of 4th Esdras, which I mentioned in episode 2.3, The Ezra Muddle. Rabbinical Judaism blotted the apocalypses from its collective memory. The Roman destruction of the Temple was one blow. The failure of the last Jewish revolt against Rome in 136, the death knell. After that time, Jews saw no hope of God coming in triumph to destroy Rome and restore the Jews to their rightful place in God's plan. In Judaism, the apocalyptic literature survived only at the fringes in mystical works. Even then, the mystics dropped the fascination with the end of days and retained only the explorations of heaven found in many of the apocalypses. If you want more detail, check out the chariot and palace literature I talked about in episode 2.1, Into Babylon. The first Enoch gives us the earliest detailed description of the orders of angels and demons. Both species are little slated in the Jewish Old Testament, the Tanakh. True, there are some references to divine beings, such as the messengers in Genesis or Exodus, but these figures are anonymous. Even the name Hasatan, mentioned in the book of Job, is not a personal name, but a job title, the adversary. There is only one named demon, Azazel, in Leviticus, and 2 named angels in the book of Daniel, and that is it. The only other glimpses of demons and angels are in the book of Tobit. Don't go looking for that in your King James Bible. Tobit is absent from Jewish or Protestant Bibles. Although St. Jerome knew the book was not in the Jewish canon, he included Tobit in his Latin Vulgate. Jerome claimed to have translated Tobit into Latin from an Aramaic original. No such text was seen until the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which provided several versions in Aramaic and Hebrew, agreeing closely with Jerome's version. Well done, Jerome. Tobit is a typical historical romance, akin to the books of Judith, Ruth, and Esther. The book tells the story of the family of Tobit, an Israelite deported to Assyria after the destruction of his country. The setting is around 700 BC. Scholars are in no doubt that the book was written in late Persian times, centuries later. It could be contemporary with the oldest parts of 1st Enoch. In a public service message aimed squarely at budgerigar owners, the book opens with the pious Tobit blinded by bird droppings. Don't ask. After 4 years of blindness, the miserable Tobit begs for death. The scene quickly changes to the country of Media and Tobit's kinswoman Sarah. Quote, Tobit 3:7. On that very day in Media, it so happened that Sarah had to listen to the reproaches from one of her father's maids. For she had been given in marriage to 7 husbands, but the wicked demon Asmodeus kept killing them off before they could have intercourse with her, as is prescribed for wives. The maid said to her, You are the one who kills your husbands. Look, you have already been given in marriage to 7 husbands, but you do not bear the name of a single one of them. That day Sarah was sad at heart. She went in tears to hang herself, but she reconsidered, saying to herself, It is far better for me not to hang myself, but to beg Yahweh that I might die, and no longer have to listen to such reproaches in my lifetime. End quote. I'll bet Sarah didn't put that history on her eHarmony profile. There is another swift change of scene. With Tobit expecting to die soon, he sends his only son, Tobias, to Media to fulfill a family financial obligation. During this trip, Tobias is accompanied by the angel Raphael, in disguise as a travelling pharmaceutical rep. Tobias is attacked by a large fish. Knowing an opportunity when he sees one, Raphael tells Tobias to kill and extract its body parts for medicines. Upon arriving in Media, Tobias marries Sarah at Raphael's insistence. Tobias uses the fish parts to dispose of the demon Asmodeus and to protect the marriage bed. His job done, the angel Raphael returns to his headquarters at Big Pharma in Nineveh to make a few million shekels selling fish oil remedies. When Tobias returns home, he applies the rest of the fish to restore his father's sight, and they live happily ever after. The angel is the driving character in the plot. In the rest of the Old Testament, even the book of Daniel, angels make only a few cameo appearances for a verse or two. Tobit is the only Old Testament book in which an angel is a major and recurring figure. With that brief mention in Tobit, we hear no more of angels and demons until 1st Enoch. Modern scholars have tried disentangling the long and complex work of 1st Enoch. Who wrote it and when? All are agreed that the book we find in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Ethiopian canon is a composite work of 5 sections, assembled over as many centuries. The oldest part is the first third, known as the Book of Watches, which most scholars confidently date to the early Persian period, shortly after the return, and before the writing of the Book of Daniel. A few words on that term watches. In Aramaic, the language of the book, the standard term for angels is Irin, which means something like awake, guard, or watcher. That's a word also used in the book of Daniel. The book of 1st Enoch starts off with the shock and awe of most apocalypses, when the angels bestow a vision upon the holy man Enoch, revealing the current judgment of the end of days. Then the book gets really interesting. In many ways it retells the flood story, but without the flood. The Book of the Watchers riffs off these verses from Genesis, verses explaining why the world must be destroyed by water. Quote, Genesis 6:1. When men began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were fair, and they took to wife such of them as they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the ground, man and beast, and creeping things and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. End quote. The Book of Watches constructs a great story from those 7 enigmatic verses. Quote, 1st Enoch 6:1. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. They were led by Semyaza. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind." End quote. 3,000 ells. That's about a kilometre, half a mile. The Watchers have sexually defiled themselves with human women. No mention of defiling human men. But they have many more sins to commit. Quote, 1 Enoch 8:1. "And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all colouring tinctures. Semyaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Barachiel taught astrology, Kokabel the constellations, Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds, Arachiel the signs of the earth, Shamsiel the signs of the sun, and Sariel the course of the moon." End quote. Not only have the Watchers sexually transgressed, they have brought illicit knowledge, such as eyeliner. What could be more wicked than eyeliner? The mysterious giants of Genesis now become the source of all evil and destruction. Quote, 1 Enoch 15:8. "The giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits, because they are born from men, and from the holy Watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them." End quote. The Watchers of 1 Enoch are the first we hear of fallen angels, and the first we hear of divine beings opposed to God's will. The divine being called Satan in the Old Testament is not the Satan you think you know. In the Old Testament, Satan is a bureaucrat, God's loyal prosecuting attorney. Only in 1 Enoch do we find angelic beings opposed to God. Satan is not one of these beings. In 1 Enoch, the chief baddies are Semyaza and Azazel. Humanity's suffering is eventually heard by the angels Michael, Uriel, Raphael and Gabriel. This management team serving the Lord is another of 1 Enoch's innovations. God commands that the Watchers be bound. Quote, 1 Enoch 10:11. "And the Lord said unto Michael, Go, bind Semyaza and his associates. Bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth. In those days they shall be led off to the abyss of fire, and to the torment and the prison in which they shall be confined for ever. And whosoever shall be condemned and destroyed will from thenceforth be bound together with them to the end of all 15 generations." Now we skip ahead to 1 Enoch 26:1. "Then said I, For what object is this accursed valley? Then Uriel answered and said, This accursed valley is for those who are accursed for ever. Here shall all the accursed be gathered together, and here shall be the place of their habitation." End quote. Another innovation. 1 Enoch gives us the earliest depiction of hell as a place of punishment. There is no hell in the Old Testament, no place of punishment. With two notable exceptions, Enoch and Elijah, everyone goes to Sheol, a drab and dreary place. Sheol is not a place of punishment. It's more like a dentist's waiting room, where you only have ancient Reader's Digest magazines to entertain you for eternity. I had a lot more to say about 1 Enoch and the Apocalypses in some earlier podcasts of my show, co-produced and written with Steve Guerra of the History of the Papacy podcast. Have a listen to some of those bonus episodes from 2016 in your favourite podcast player. In the next episode of the History in the Bible, I launch into the exciting history of the Jews under the Greek kingdoms. I'll see you then. Thanks for listening. For maps, charts, and diagrams, check out my website, www.historyinthebible.com.